In a time of political division and economic uncertainty, a new conflict erupted, not on a battlefield, but in the aisles of Walmart. President Trump demanded Walmart absorb the costs of his tariffs on Chinese goods, challenging the company's promise of low prices and exposing the hidden links between government policy and our shopping carts. This standoff forced Americans to confront a pressing question: when governments and global corporations collide, who pays the price? As we dive into this story, we'll uncover how political maneuvers can have real, painful effects on everyday lives. To truly grasp the dilemma facing Walmart, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture, one that stretches far beyond the aisles of any single store. Walmart, as the world's largest retailer, is deeply intertwined with the global economy, and its fate is often shaped by international events that most shoppers never see. At the heart of Walmart's recent challenges lies the escalating trade conflict between the United States and China. A conflict that didn't just appear overnight but was years in the making. To understand how this all began, we need to revisit the roots of the US-China trade war. In 2018, the Trump administration took a hard stance against China, accusing the country of a range of unfair trade practices. These included allegations of intellectual property theft, where American innovations were said to be copied without permission, and forced technology transfers, where US companies had to share their secrets to do business in China. There was also a massive trade imbalance, with the US importing far more from China than it exported. The administration's solution was to impose tariffs, essentially taxes on imported goods. The idea was simple: make foreign products more expensive, so American-made goods would be more competitive. In theory, this would boost US manufacturing and protect American jobs. The first wave of tariffs targeted steel and aluminum, industries seen as vital to national security. But the measures didn't stop there. Soon, tariffs expanded to cover a wide range of everyday consumer goods. Everything from electronics and toys to clothing and kitchenware. Suddenly, the impact was felt not just in factories but in stores like Walmart, where millions of Americans shop for affordable essentials. The administration insisted that China would bear the cost of these tariffs, suggesting that the financial burden would fall on Chinese exporters. But in reality, it was American importers, companies like Walmart, who had to pay the higher prices when goods arrived at US ports. These costs quickly added up, creating a ripple effect throughout the supply chain. For Walmart, one of the world's largest importers of Chinese-made products, this meant a sudden and massive financial strain. The company's entire business model, built on offering low prices through an efficient global supply chain, was suddenly under threat. Walmart now faced a difficult choice. Should it absorb these new costs and risk shrinking its already thin profit margins, or should it pass the extra expense on to customers in the form of higher prices? For millions of American families, this meant the possibility of paying more for everyday necessities: groceries, school supplies, and household goods. The trade war was no longer just a headline or a political talking point. It had arrived at America's front door, changing the way people shopped and forcing companies like Walmart to rethink their entire approach to business in a rapidly shifting global landscape. As tariffs squeezed retailers, Walmart's CFO warned that higher prices were inevitable. This clashed with the White House narrative, prompting President Trump to publicly demand that Walmart eat the tariffs instead of raising prices. The administration framed this as corporate responsibility, but for Walmart, it was an impossible ask. With razor-thin profit margins, absorbing billions in new costs would devastate the company's finances. Defying the president risked public backlash. Complying risked financial ruin. The demand revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of retail economics. Walmart's business model simply couldn't absorb such a shock. The "eat the tariffs" ultimatum was more political theater than practical solution. Walmart's leadership responded with quiet defiance. They pledged to keep prices as low as possible, but made it clear: absorbing the full cost of tariffs was unsustainable. Instead, Walmart negotiated with suppliers, accelerated shipments, and explored alternative sourcing, temporary fixes, not long-term solutions. The company's stance highlighted the real-world limits of political pressure. Walmart's vast supply chain couldn't simply shift overnight. This moment underscored the tension between government policy and corporate reality. Walmart's refusal to bow set a precedent for other companies. The message was clear: even giants can't subsidize national trade policy alone. Walmart wasn't alone. Every major retailer faced the same storm, but each charted a different course. Target tried to stay price competitive, raising prices cautiously. Home Depot targeted price hikes to specific tariff-heavy categories, balancing cost and customer loyalty. Off-price retailers like TJ Maxx, less reliant on Chinese imports, were largely insulated and maintained their pricing. These varied strategies revealed how supply chains shape vulnerability to trade policy. Retailers sourcing directly from China were hit hardest. Others, with more flexible or domestic sourcing, weathered the crisis better. The tariff war exposed hidden strengths and weaknesses across the retail landscape. Despite political claims, economists agreed, tariffs are a tax passed to consumers. Companies like Walmart paid the import tax, then raised prices to recover costs. The burden fell hardest on lower and middle-income families who rely on affordable goods. Price hikes hit categories dominated by Chinese manufacturing, electronics, toys, furniture. For many, the dream of everyday low prices was replaced by the reality of everyday higher tariffs. The debate over who pays became central, but the evidence was clear. American households bore the brunt. The checkout line became the true ledger of the trade war's cost. Ordinary people, not politicians or CEOs, paid the final bill. Beyond numbers, the trade war brought real anxiety to millions of Americans. News of price hikes fueled uncertainty, leading families to stock up or cut back on spending. This fear threatened the broader economy as consumer spending slowed. For many, Walmart is a lifeline. Rising prices meant tough choices and growing vulnerability. The crisis was about affordability, not empty shelves. Retail workers felt the strain too, facing frustrated customers and job uncertainty. If retailers absorbed too much cost, layoffs and reduced hours loomed. The ripple effects touched every level, from shoppers to store employees. Economists across the spectrum agreed, tariffs act as a regressive tax on Americans. These tariffs, intended to protect domestic industries, often backfired, leading to increased costs for everyday goods. The ripple effect was felt across various sectors, from manufacturing to retail, impacting the average consumer's wallet. Studies showed costs were passed almost entirely to U.S. importers and consumers, not foreign exporters. This meant that the intended pressure on foreign companies was largely ineffective, as American businesses and consumers bore the brunt of the financial burden. China got paid before tariffs were applied. American companies paid the tax. This arrangement left U.S. businesses scrambling to adjust their budgets and pricing strategies, often resulting in higher prices for consumers. Unless Chinese suppliers cut prices, which they rarely did, the burden stayed in the U.S. Retailers found themselves in a difficult position, having to decide whether to absorb the costs or pass them on to consumers, neither of which was a sustainable solution. Experts warned of broader fallout, disrupted supply chains, reduced investment, and retaliatory tariffs hurting American farmers. The agricultural sector, in particular, faced significant challenges as export markets shrank and domestic prices fluctuated. Moving supply chains out of China was slow and costly, no quick fix for retailers. The complexity of global trade meant that shifting production was not only expensive, but also time-consuming, leaving many businesses in a precarious position. The consensus: there's no easy way to win a trade war. The intricate web of international trade relationships made it clear that unilateral actions often led to unintended consequences, affecting not just the targeted nations, but also the initiators. The pain was felt not by foreign adversaries, but by American families and businesses. As prices rose and economic uncertainty loomed, families had to tighten their budgets, and businesses faced tough decisions about layoffs and closures. The economic realities of tariffs were stark, highlighting the interconnectedness of the global economy and the challenges of navigating trade policies. The ongoing clash between Walmart and the White House is more than just a headline. It's a powerful lesson in how the decisions made in the halls of power and the boardrooms of major corporations ripple out to affect our everyday lives. Politics and global economics aren't abstract concepts. They shape the reality of what we pay at the checkout counter, what products are available on store shelves, and even the stability of our jobs and communities. Decisions made in Washington, whether about tariffs, trade agreements, or economic policy, can raise the price of milk, toys, or TVs overnight. A single policy change can mean the difference between affordable groceries and a tighter monthly budget for millions of families. When you see prices jump on everyday items, it's often the result of complex negotiations and disputes happening far from your local store. If trade disputes and political standoffs persist, higher prices may become the new normal. This isn't just a temporary inconvenience. It can fundamentally change how families plan their spending, what luxuries they can afford, and even what essentials they might have to go without. The impact is felt most by those already struggling to make ends meet. For consumers, staying informed is more crucial than ever. Store prices now reflect global politics as much as supply and demand. Understanding the reasons behind price changes empowers you to make better choices, advocate for your interests, and prepare for what's ahead. The news isn't just background noise, it's a guide to navigating your financial future. This episode clearly shows the immense power that both government and corporations have over our wallets. Their decisions, negotiations, and even disagreements can determine whether your paycheck stretches far enough or if you have to make tough choices at the register. The balance of power between these entities shapes the economic landscape we all live in. Their ongoing dialogue, sometimes cooperative, sometimes contentious, will continue to shape economic stability and the cost of living for everyone. As these forces interact, the effects can be seen in everything from the price of bread to the availability of jobs in your community. The central questions remain: who should absorb the costs of economic policy? Should it be the corporations, the government, or everyday people like you? And how do we balance national interests like economic growth and security with the need to keep life affordable for all citizens? These are debates that will define our future. Ultimately, this story calls on us to be engaged citizens, not just passive consumers. By staying informed, participating in public discussions, and making our voices heard, whether at the ballot box in our communities or through our choices as shoppers, we can help shape the future of our economy. The power to influence change is in our hands, and together we can navigate the challenges ahead for a more stable and fair economic future.